Did you?
On the field. Yeah, I applied with in front of the wheels, cause
Yeah.
that thing weighed 35,200 pounds.
Yeah, that's not very much tire then for that much weight, yep.
All right. This morning is Wednesday, March 27th, and we are in ordinance policy committee. President, Councilman Blunt, Councilman Schramm. We also have present all four of the appointed officials, Public Works Director Troy Kruger, City Attorney Paul Jensen, Finance Officer Shannon Phillips, and Public Safety Director Justin Day. Also joining us is Dan Furness, the Code Enforcement Officer. Mr. Jensen, being ordinance, this is your area of specialty that you council have been looking at when you brought to them quite a bit already.
They have, and we'll just pile right in. Ordinance 1074, we've seen before, it's gone back from council back here to committee. Before it got up here to committee today, I did a fair amount of research into some of the communities that were identified as places that had ordinances in favor of what the proponents wanted as far as the city being involved in funding with the traffic litter release type of provision. I will tell you, I can't say I talked to every community, but I looked at the ordinances of, I believe, 5 of them. And I talked to a couple of officials in 2 of them. And I cannot find any ordinance that permits the city to any such program. What I was told was that probably similar to the city of Winter, those communities have private nonprofit groups that do these programs, and they do come to the city sometimes seeking some funding by way of donation. So it may be that that's what this group wants to consider. I am understanding that at least to some extent, at least one of these folks is has formed a 501c3 of some sort for this TNR program, so it may be that that's what they want to do. What I then went back and looked at our ordinance that was being considered, as opposed to some of those in these other communities. The main difference that I can tell you that I see with a couple of them is that they are in a position, facilities-wise, to handle larger numbers of both dogs and cats for a longer period of time, which is certainly under our current situation not very feasible. So I'm back very similar to what we had originally proposed. I did a little clarification. You'll recall that the last time we looked at this ordinance, there was a question about a couple of the places that were clearly saying that somebody else's cat can't be going on private property of another person, but we didn't really clarify public property. So I've done that now, and specifically using the terminology of streets and alleys and public property as well as private property owners. So I think we've covered that base. I did not make any change because council, I think, made it very clear to me what they wanted to look at going forward from a standpoint of fees and fines. So we stayed with that. So we got a $50 civil penalty. We got $20 per day per animal for carekeeping, which was up from the original ordinance of $3 a day, no civil penalty. So, having said those things, I'll open it up to if anybody has questions or comments.
Mr. Jensen, Dan and I did speak to our liability carrier on this too, because the question came up in those meetings, is the city liable, or do we take ownership of those animals once trapped? Our insurance coverage was very hesitant for the city to be trapping and then taking them on in a continuous manner without there being tons of signs and notices posted where all the traps are and all of that. From their because you accidentally trap one person's pet, and that's all it takes is one person's pet. So their standpoint was, obviously, the city can do as they wish, but they would prefer if the city does like what a lot of these other cities were doing that were mentioned, that was said, that they are doing this. The cities aren't doing it, they're just financially supporting or verbally backing. They are not in charge of it. And that's where our liability coverage came in and said, we would prefer if you just back somebody, a third party, versus taking it on yourself, especially where we don't have someone specifically trained in that type of area at this point in time, of taking care of animals, and where we don't have an actual, what's the word?
Tina?
Are you talking about the neutering though? Or are you talking about just the
The trapping
catching?
and containing them and keeping them. The neutering, not, we wouldn't even I don't remember if this says that we're taking care of that, but I don't think that this was ever saying the city was gonna take care of neutering. We were just trapping them, and keeping them, and depositing them elsewhere. So neutering's never talked about in here.
Was not.
Okay, that's why I was asking the question. Yeah.
Now, just as an aside, but it relates to the question about neutering, the state, the legislature did in fact pass, and the governor signed into law, a bill that clarified the fact that any person or entity could be involved in trapping, neutering, and releasing the animal without being in violation of the law. Prior to this, it was at least a high possibility that a person would be charged with a crime for releasing the animal back in the quote wild of the community, because you've taken responsibility and now you're shucking it out and letting it go. And so they did clarify from that standpoint that if we do have citizens or groups involved in it, in doing a trap, neuter, release program, they're not going to be in violation of the law. And consequently, then it gives us the assurance that nobody's going to claim that we're somehow conspiring with or cooperating with somebody that's violating the law. I appreciate hearing that. I didn't know you'd had a conversation with the carrier, but it's a good thing to have it checked.
If somebody would happen to come after the city because you trapped their cat, their cat would have to be in violation of this ordinance.
You'd have to have proof of it.
Not on their own
We would have
yard.
proof that we set the trap in said location, and if the neighbor's cat came over and got in that,
Yeah. So
that cat was against the ordinance and came on personal property.
it
All
would
right.
come down to documentation. So whoever's in charge of it has to make sure it's fully documented.
Terribly hard to record where you set the trap.
Oh, I thought the signage was that the cat wouldn't go on there. Yeah.
Put a warning
Just
sign.
like deer crossing signs,
That's right.
they can only cross at that point, yeah.
I'm not totally against looking at having somebody else do this. I don't know that we have the resources to be trapping cats. I don't think our, I mean,
Didn't I understand we bought a bunch of traps?
20 of them.
Yeah. Put them to use, yep. I don't want cats in my yard.
actual having our
Just had it on
own
the side,
employees
but,
setting them out.
If somebody needed some traps and we're a 501c3, the city could actually make a donation, in-kind donation of traps, if you want.
Rental.
Or could you even add that into your resolution of fees, if you could rent it, or do we add it to this ordinance that if a property owner would like a trap, the city would provide it for such and such amount of days?
Don't we pay somebody to be an animal control officer?
2 hours a week to go,
Huh?
2 hours a week to go in and feed them.
Takes 20 minutes to set a trap. That's quite a few traps that could be set up in 2 hours a week.
Not a week, a day, sorry. I'm not sure, Justin. Is it 2 hours a week or 2 hours a day?
I believe it's 2 hours a day.
$300 a month,
Yeah, that's what it comes out to.
$10 a day. I'm not even sure that's enough.
No, it's, I think it's a week.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so 2 hours a week, okay.
yeah, 2 hours a week.
That's plenty,
Huh?
that's plenty of time.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Problem is you have to check them every day.
Once they're in the trap, they ain't running into everybody's yard either. They can just stay there.
And then that's when.
Till
you
a
get
mouse
other
runs
people
by.
in the community upset that you're being inhumane with animals.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's already a standard set when it comes to that, because I believe GFMP, like, they do trapping quite frequently, and, so the traps have to be checked every 72 hours. That's kind of the standard that is set through the state, that if an animal is captured in that trap, you have to do something with that animal within 72 hours is kind of what is looked at as the humane amount of time
Yeah.
in there.
Well, let me just circle this back for discussion and clarification. Based upon the things that Chandler was telling us about the insurance company's concern, and then listening to this, my question would be, do you want the city involved directly in trapping, or do you want to encourage private entities to do it? Or both?
Your ordinance says police or animal control.
It does.
Yep.
I would
I
be
see no problem with the city involved in trapping a stray animal. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think we should be, I don't know that we should be neutering and that stuff. If there's a 501c3 that wants to organize in winter, like these people are talking about, then let them organize and let them, just like any other donated entity, come to the city and ask for a donation. And the council can decide whether or not we want to help them or not. And if helping them is give them the 20 traps that we bought, so be it, you know.
If there's an organization that is willing to do the trapping and the checking and everything else, I think it would make sense to work with them and allow them to do that, because obviously there's a passion for that within that organization, and I think they are going to do a fine job at doing it if they are willing to do it. If they are not, then we do have a responsibility to the residents of this community to help in this fight. So I guess that's kind of my stand on it. If this 501(c) is willing to take on the trapping and doing all of those such duties, then we would work very closely with them, but we would absolutely allow them to do that portion of it.
I agree with that, yep.
I'm fine with that, but I mean, to move forward with this, I mean, there's no 501(c)
Yep.
form, there's, who knows how long any of that stuff could take.
You
I
don't
think
have
we-
it in your current budget.
You're presenting this today with the hopes that we would ask council to approve this ordinance?
As far as I was concerned, unless you had changes to make, I'm very comfortable.
I like what I read here. After just one, I may get home and then change my mind, but that'll show up Monday.
And we do now, if somebody would like a trap, we have paperwork that they fill out so we can keep track of it. So, I mean, if someone is asking for a trap or something like that, we will absolutely let them use one of our 20 traps. So that's where I say, I mean, I think we got our minds kind of locked in on donating these traps. Well, we don't have to donate them. If somebody wants to take this on, we would let them use X amount of traps. Let us know where you got them.
Right, right.
We'll do the paperwork on it so we know who has how many traps. And that's what I'm saying when I say work with them.
But currently, to interrupt you, currently, if a private citizen calls the cops and says, I got a stray cat over here, you'll take a trap over and you'll try to alleviate that stray
Yeah.
cat
Yep,
in whatever manner possible.
yep.
Okay, yep, that's what this does? Okay. send it to council then, is my opinion.
Agreed? Okay. Good, thank you. We'll move on to 1075. There was clarification requested with regard to the occasional request when a person buys a plot in the city cemetery to be able to bury two people within the same plot.
We had this before, did we not, in days of old?
In some circumstance you did, I can't say that I found an ordinance that specifically identified it.
Okay,
We had was we had a fine, a fee set.
They had
That's
a
it.
fee set.
a what, please?
A fee, so we had a fee for a double burial, but
Yep.
our ordinance didn't.
But no ordinance saying we could have a double barrel
Correct.
burial? Okay. Because I understood after we changed it, that we had it.
What I was told, and what I can find, is that it was a practice that was followed by the city, but that there may not have been.
No ordinance allowing it. Can't believe that.
Nor defining it. And so we were asked to look at this again, and we came back, and this is what is presented in front of you. Essentially, what it says is, you can do two burials, full burials within the same plot, so long as, before it's used the first time.
Yep.
It has to be requested that it's designated as such, so that the first burial can be buried deeper.
And that's the practice we were doing without an ordinance.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
then this was good.
This solidifies it because it makes sure that you have to have that first request in before the first burial.
So I notice also that this includes, which was obviously somewhere else because it's not in yellow, if I want to put an urn
Yes.
at the head or the foot, I'm allowed to dig that in on top of,
That was actually passed last year.
okay?
We updated the ordinance last year. Was it?
Yep.
I think it was like last August.
And we don't need an ordinance allowing the family to put an urn in a casket with a body?
We do not.
Okay,
We don't have to, as long as the casket is lawfully buried.
okay,
It's kind of like saying you can bury this person with their jewelry if you want to.
okay.
You can bury this person with their family.
Because I've actually
Bible.
seen that happen.
I have.
Yep,
Yes.
and that was,
As long as it's not prohibited, it would be allowed.
yep, okay.
We wanted to make sure that you could be allowed to have an urn or two buried out.
Then I'd recommend we send this to council as well.
I only have one question. We need to change the resolution to set a price.
Correct. We do that. Thank you for reminding
Did
me.
we do what, please?
Set a price. So we need to know what to charge when they're buried, because it was double the price, because you weren't technically going double deep, I understand that. So you don't have to double the price, but for a double burial, we did charge double the price.
Okay.
So we need to put that now into our rates resolution, what we would charge if somebody wants to be buried double deep.
Yep.
So if you're gonna pass this, you need to pass that at the same time.
The
so
new
that-
resolution? Can that be done before Monday?
Oh, yeah.
And
certainly.
can we see it, like, is it legal for Austin and I to see that via text? And
I
then
can
say,
send it to you
yes,
in your
this is,
packet on Friday.
okay.
Just put on there, you're approving this with the resolution to come.
Yep,
And
okay.
then you guys,
What kind of price do we want?
Why not double? That keeps it easy.
It is double, so it's double the work. So you bury the first person, I mean, we just go 2 foot
You're
deep.
gonna, yeah, you're
So
just
double
gonna
the
do.
price, okay?
But other
Okay.
than that, when you do the second burial, it's
I
the
agree with double, yep.
it's the same.
Yeah, so if you're setting it at double price, all it's gonna do is add one little line into that resolution that says double burial, this price.
Right.
Yep.
Which on the weekends, it's during the week, it's 400, and on the weekend and holidays, it's 500 for a burial. for
Okay,
open
so-
close.
Just because I need a picture. When I buy my lot, it's $300.
Yep.
If I tell you at that time, this is gonna be a double, is it gonna be 600 then?
Nope, you're just paying $300 for the lot. When you buy it, you're paying for the lot. The time that it costs you more money is when you're actually buried, the open.
Okay, so I
place.
paid 300 for my lot, and then I paid the city to dig the hole. That happens every time?
Yes.
Okay.
Depends on when you're buying the lot, but yeah. If you buy the lot 20 years ago, you're not dead, we're not digging the hole at that time, we charge you when we.
I understand that, but when you dig the hole,
Yeah.
that's when you charge another fee other than the 300.
That's the price in the resolution.
Okay,
Since we're gonna dig
Totally
this hole
different
twice, so
Yep.
we're gonna charge them twice.
okay,
When you go in the office.
I understand that, yep.
When you go in the office and you buy your plot, you're paying, that's a one-time fee.
Yeah, I didn't remember paying to have the city, maybe the funeral home paid that, and I paid them, okay.
Yes, quite often.
Okay,
We get
very
paid.
good, because I only remember paying one time.
Right.
So it depends on a lot of different things. Funeral home will pay us and essentially charge it back to the customer
Okay.
if there's life insurance involved. If there's nothing else involved, the funeral home will call us and say, you have to have cash from that customer. And until we have cash, we don't bury.
So in the case of one of these, I call them double burials or.
Yep.
If husband and wife was died in a car wreck, can you do two at the same time?
Yeah. That's actually,
That's
the-
possible.
I mean, I don't wanna use the word easy, but that's the most, that is the.
Would they stack two concrete vaults then on top of each other before you put the dirt back in?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know
Yeah,
how.
because you gotta be in a concrete vault anyway,
Right.
and so both of them do. So I would think that you would stack the two vaults on top.
The practice that has been done out in the cemetery is that if you know it's going to be, like a husband and wife on the same plot, is the first one will go deeper, and obviously, and then we bury that in sand. And we bring the sand up to a certain level over it, so that when we're digging, as soon as we hit the sand, we know where we're at.
Yep,
And
yep.
then we remove the dirt off that, and then we have enough depth to bury the second vault.
But you're still gonna hit a concrete vault, which is not gonna do any damage to the original burial.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a backhoe does damage to everything.
yeah.
Anything it encounters,
No,
but,
no.
yeah, no, I mean, that's.
But I mean, like my $3,000 casket that I bought, you're not gonna break that
No.
because you're gonna hit the concrete
Yeah,
before, yeah.
no, we never come close to the vault.
I like the idea of the double fee, that makes sense, yep.
Very good. Next, we have a job description. Or, I'm sorry, before we get there, let's go to policy 4.10.
Years of experience, yep.
Pardon me?
No, the years of experience thing.
Oh, yeah.
Did this come from the other committee that Joe Hockett serves on?
This came from personnel.
Okay,
Yeah. This is what was
Back
passed
8
on to
years.
me based on actions that council actually took in one previous time to suggest that what we want, if they are legitimate, well correlated years of experience, that they would award a 0.5% per year up to a total of 8 years or 4%. And that would be applied to the base wage chart, so that if this new hire is within the base wage plus within that years of experience, that wouldn't normally come to council, there's no reason to bring it to council when it's been decided that they qualify for the years of experience addition. If they're gonna be above that, then they would have to come through the process to council. But if they get awarded, for instance, if they got 6 years of prior experience, and they're given a 3% above the base,
above the starting wage.
above the starting wage base,
Okay.
yes. And that would just be that would be within the control of the department head and the appointed to do that.
And this is comparable to what the school system does?
School system says they don't have a policy.
Oh, that's what I
They
understood.
don't, well,
Okay.
they don't have a number of years max.
Okay,
You can walk in there with 30 years of experience and you'll get awarded for it. If.
15%.
okay,
Yeah.
They just, yeah, they don't have a max, it's all dependent on each.
okay, that was
individual
just talk, okay.
case. Yep.
Yep,
That-
all right.
And that's according to the school official I spoke to.
I like putting a maximum on it, you know.
So with this maximum, this allows the appointed official and the supervisor to hire above the wage scale I'm gonna use, what are we at, 2099? I, just gonna throw that figure out there.
Something pretty close to that.
And you have a gentleman come in with 10 years' experience.
You're gonna
This
do
would
it.
allow the supervisor to go up to 4% without counsel to 2183.
Correct.
Any offer above and beyond the scope of this, let's say 2183 is not gonna get it done, the gentleman's asking for 22.
We'd have to have a council vote to allow that. Okay.
Yes,
Now you're gonna
yes.
Yep, otherwise,
This gives them the authority
Yep.
to move forward with 8 years of
here's
experience.
what we can probably give you.
This
Yeah.
is what I can do, otherwise I gotta go to council for
Yep,
anything
yep,
above and beyond.
yep.
So you have a similar policy with your summer help, in the fact that if they return from last year to this year, they automatically get 50 cents above what starting wage is. So you
Right.
have already set a precedent.
And that's
for
written
this.
in, that's written somewhere.
It is.
Yep.
Yep. That, all this does is put this in writing that,
It gives us a place to go.
'Cause if
It
they-
gives your supervisors a
say
little more
we,
ability.
say we were interviewing a police chief from Harrisburg to come and be a officer in winter.
Correct.
He should probably get more than the $20.97 starting wage, because he's already started somewhere else, even though it was somewhere else.
But this also puts that boundary there where this is all I can do, otherwise
Yep.
I gotta get counsel
Yep,
involved.
yep.
We still have options, is the nicest thing here.
Yeah.
If it is, if the 4%, they're happy with it, we're happy with it, we just go forward with it. But if it needs to be more than that, then we still have that option, like in the scenario you just put out.
Yep,
Yeah, 4% probably ain't gonna get that guy either. So at that point, we would then come before you guys and say, okay, this is the request, we're willing to do it, are you guys?
yep.
So it kind of gives us both options, and
Because we aren't the best,
I like that.
the best paying city in the state.
No.
So if we're gonna get anybody that comes from someplace else, we're gonna have to take that into account. Yep. So this needs to go before council,
It does.
okay?
I think on this, I mean, I know in 99% of the situations, the council would approve it, but when the council is the one that the budget falls back on, and then if they did this on January 2, and then the wages are over budgeted, it comes back to the council to do a supplemental budget or do whatever to transfer money. I still think above starting wage comes to the city council.
No matter what.
Well, you can also tell them no to the supplemental if they can't make it work in their bottom line. If they made that decision and they can't make it in their bottom line,
But then
you
if
say
you
no.
don't supplement, say the street department, they're gonna be over in wages, they do one less block that we approved, that we wanted 51 blocks done, or, I mean, that's just.
I understand what you're saying,
They
yep.
can, they can just cut projects that were budgeted for.
They can do that now.
I know, but if council during budget season pays attention to what they approved money for, and that didn't happen, then next year at budget season, you make adjustments and say, no, there ain't no sense in giving you $1 million, because you didn't do it last year.
No, I absolutely agree with you, and that's where it comes back. Yes, they have their whole bottom line to work with, and that's where you guys are gonna have to come in during budget season or during review season and say, you're not doing what you're telling us, you're standing up there, you're essentially lying to us, and now we're gonna cut your budget because of it. And you're gonna have to figure out how to work within it, and there won't be any supplemental budget, so if you're done at the end of August, you might have to start laying some people off. I mean, you guys do have that authority.
So,
But didn't we just do something similar to this in parks, where we told the parks director to go ahead and do that entrance to the city with his current budget, take it from wherever you need? Are we, I'm gonna say we, talking out of both sides of our mouth here? We're gonna let the cemetery do it, or the parks department do it, but we might not want this guy to do it?
I didn't know that.
so
I know you didn't, and that's,
I'm gonna give an example.
that's what I'm wondering, are we getting away from where we should be
I'm gonna,
on these things?
I'd like to continue down with that example that we started on, the 2099, the 4%. It's within the authority that you guys have given them in their budget. Oftentimes, there's obviously an opening if you're gonna hire somebody, and if somebody with experience comes. Last year, we had a few departments, 2, 3 maybe, that in personal wages, you'd appropriated the funds to run a full department for the year. Ideally, we never run with any openings, but we know that we have shift work, it happens, and we have turnover. A couple of those departments one department had $250,000, $220,000 available to them. We had a water department that had 60,000. That 4% in that example that I gave on 2099 going to 2183 with this authority to give credit for years of experience equates to $1,747 a year. At 83 cents over 2,080 hours, it's $1,750. It's not a budget breaker, and possibly it's already been saved from that position being open. It's just given them the authority to get that person with experience with these parameters. And if it doesn't fit within these parameters, then it becomes a discussion with you guys as council where it's easy to say at that time, personal wages. Let's take a look at your personal wages in your budget. Oh, I see you've got $15,000 that you were appropriated last year but won't spend because of openings. 4% is $1,747. What's it gonna take to hire this person and how does it impact future budgets? That's the discussion. I agree with what your thought process is on the projects, Austin, but what we've never looked at and taken into account in years is when we run open, there's so much money that's appropriated for personal services by you guys as council that goes back to unappropriated cash at the end of the year because we don't fill the positions. This gives them the opportunity to find somebody with years of experience and use those funds in personal services to go up to 4% over. And if not, then it takes the discussion. At least that's the discussion, and then you can make I would hope, I'm encouraging right now, that they are listening to this and they come to you and go, personal services, we've ran open between wages, benefits, retirement. I have $32,000 that's gonna go unappropriated at the end of the year. I would like to give this guy 8%, not 4%, $1.65 or $1.70, and this is why. And they give you those numbers, so you guys can look at the numbers that you've appropriated already that will go unappropriated because of the length of the position being open, and you guys find a balance to hiring and getting that hired without affecting projects. Projects, Brad, yeah, we gave the parks, we thought there was gonna be room in there to get that done. If not, we told them, come back, but we need that done.
Right.
We made that a priority to get that island green and watered. And Marty thought he could get it, and Troy thought they could get it done within the budget. Separate area, same concept, separate area is what it is. This is just in personal services, gentlemen. But
The other point that I would just add on that I think just carries that one step further from the standpoint of analysis. We've had several situations where council has received these requests to consider letting me hire somebody for X number of dollars above what the normal amount is. What this does is it sets a standard that you're already now going to have in place for those years of prior experience. So you're treating everybody similarly situated. You're going to be treating them the same rather than have one department come in one time and end up with one result and have the next department come in another time and end up with a result that doesn't at all correlate with that one. This sets a standard for how to apply the years of service. I think there's some value in that.
it's not guaranteed you guys will give that raise. It facilitates a conversation between the operational side and you guys as the oversight of the funds, and it forces that conversation.
They still have they still have a vote in approving that hire.
Yeah, because
you know,
it's above and beyond.
Not according to how this is written.
No.
Up to
I'm
4%.
asking
No,
the
we
question.
don't.
So I'm asking the question, I'm not stating anything, I'm asking the question. So it's pretty cut and dry, and he's hiring a police officer police officer comes from another community, he's got 20 years of service, a police officer is a police officer. But in parks, the supervisor wants to make a hire, and the guy's got 10 years of whatever.
Lawn care service, yep, or
Um,
something, yep.
Or something that's even, maybe he worked on weed eaters, he worked for a mechanic shop, and he worked on lawnmowers and weed eaters. Is that real pertinent to the job? Like, who makes that decision? So I think they should still have, they should still be able to say, I don't think maybe that's, relevant to this job situation. It's not all black and white. That supervisor might come and say, hey, I got this guy, he's this bang up employee, and I wanna give him 4% more than what we're offering, but, try and sell it to you by saying, he was a lawnmower repairman, and I think that was super important in the Parks Department, so we wanna get him 4% more. Maybe that's not really,
Under that
According to
scenario, it would
this-
come back to council.
No,
Nope.
It would, because under this, if the correlation is tenuous or doubtful, then no additional wage is offered. At that point in time, if he wants to go ahead and proceed with offering the additional wage for board experience, he's gonna have to come to council.
I guess the way I look at it is, and I don't wanna separate departments, that's why I think it should come back to council for a decision. And Troy hit the nail on the head, what I was actually thinking, was somebody comes and wants, they worked for Joe Blow's lawn service the last 4 years mowing. So they got 4 years experience mowing. We give them more than starting wage because they can run a lawnmower. We all can mow our yard. A police officer isn't something we can all go do. A water department isn't something everybody's certified to do.
My world is very cut and dry. Like, when we're hiring a police officer, it's years of experience as a police officer. In corrections, it's going to either be you are a corrections officer, or it was a former police officer that is now coming into corrections.
Yeah.
So,
That's why I said.
yeah, my world
I
is
think
very
it's a
cut and
case by
dry,
case
so
basis.
this policy works
Because
perfect in my world.
The cemetery and parks department, I would say in more cases than not, you're not gonna approve more than starting wage because they worked for somebody in that field.
In my job descriptions, it flat says you have to have 5 years of experience. So is that automatically guaranteeing that they're gonna get?
Can I apply for 4% above starting wage at the parks department, say I got 5 years' experience mowing my grass at my house? I'm not downplaying the position at all, I'm just saying, we can all mow a yard. So if you've taken care of your yard for the last 20 years, you've got 20 years' experience mowing.
so your request is anything above starting wage?
Not to put this yellow one in here.
Well,
But I like the idea
I
of the
think-
limit.
I think
But is that policy or is that ordinance?
This is policy.
this is policy.
Yeah.
Personnel is
This
policy.
here is
But here we're trying to write policy into an ordinance?
No.
We're given a parameter. So you're saying, let me clarify, anything above starting wage,
Needs to come to council.
you can still leave this in here as a policy parameter that we've used already, and this becomes the guideline.
I still like this as a guideline, and to tell an employee that says, hey, we have this upon council approval.
Yeah.
we
Sure,
have-
because at least you can tell the prospective
Get some
employee,
interest and say, upon council approval, we can offer this 4%, and I'll take it to the council. We meet every 2 weeks, committee and city council.
Maybe the word allowed should be
Well, I was gonna
considered,
say, there's about 4 or 5.
and then
places
take
here
off
that-
the rest of that
There's
sentence.
about 4 or 5 places I would need to adjust the wording in here, but
Yep.
we can certainly change this so that it's.
Make it
stays
be a
in there
consideration rather than an
As
allowance.
a guideline, but still
Yep.
requiring council.
Yep.
I think more times than not, if this ever comes to council, it's gonna get approved. But I think it should be looked at, because we have departments that
Sure.
this would allow an automatic 4%. Really don't need much experience,
Right.
And if we hired 10 people that way, at that 4% increase, that could bust our personnel budget pretty easy.
Well, it depends on what, you know, in streets department, you hire one guy and you give him 4% more, you got a $1.7 million budget. But in parks, where you have a $150,000 budget, and you have 2 employees, at 4%, it makes a lot of difference.
Budget buster, yep, I agree,
I
yep.
like that the supervisor appointed brings this up in a interview. You
I
know,
might be able to get you more because of your experience, but we gotta go to
Gotta
council,
go to council to do it.
yep.
you know,
If that's what you, the way you want it, I can make that change.
That's what I like, that's what I would like.
Brad, same thing?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, I agree with that too, yep.
So here's the question, do you want me to, take it to council with changes, or do you want me to come back here 2 weeks?
I think we should see it. I
Okay.
have such a hard time processing stuff.
Okay.
It's fine,
Half the time I get home and, shit, why didn't I say that?
that's fine. We can bring it back.
It still gives you a good template, I mean, it gives you a half a year for each year, it gives you.
It does.
Gives you a good starting, so it gives us as appointings and the supervisors, we don't have to guess on what to give him. This guy's got 10 years' experience, I wanna give him, you know, this percent of increase, because you guys, you know, that you guys approve this 0.5% per year
So-
for experience, so that gives us a good starting point.
It's a good template, that template, continuing on. I listened to Chandra say, her job descriptions say 5 years' experience minimum. So is that 8 years, a person with 13 years comes, the 5 years is there, I'm a formula guy. That 5 years comes off, that leaves, he's got 13 years' experience, 8 are eligible. not-
But I just asked that question too. I mean, if you have a position that requires X amount of years
That's
to
part of
even
the
be
standard.
eligible, should
That's part of your starting wage.
Exactly, that should already be accounted for in your
Right, so you
starting
deduct
wage.
out 5 years off of, I got 16 years of experience. Well, we need 5, so 11 years are eligible.
Take a look at where this is written in the form, in the policy. It'll clarify immediately that you're not going to apply this automatically to hiring supervisory or appointed officials. It's only going to apply for your standard full-time employees.
Couldn't you put
Good point.
real briefly? Yes. Like possibly, like in a job ad in the paper that, you know, $22, starting $22 an hour. And
DOE,
So we do
possible-
that already.
Yeah, DOE.
Possible 4% more on years of experience. I mean, couldn't you put that right in there?
You would have to, it would
Get
be based
people's
off of each
attention.
job description. Because like for mine, it required 5 years, so at that point in time, required 5 years. If that's what they have is 5 years, I'm not gonna say because you have 5 years, you're gonna get a raise on it either.
Does that mean we can deduct from the starting wage when they only got 2 years of experience and we hire them?
Well,
They
if I
need
go
5?
against the job description, I shouldn't be.
when I took my typing test, it was 3 times the minimum, and I asked my boss, now, do I get 3 times the pay? And,
That was a
and the
no.
answer was no.
Right.
But I bet you got a high five. Hey, that's worth something.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Unbelievable, yep.
Don't wanna hurt them magic fingers, though.
All right, let's go on.
All right, we'll have that back in 2 weeks. Law enforcement center job description. I took some liberty with it yesterday afternoon after it was provided to me. It came from law enforcement center, Justin and Mark. I think you guys put this together, and then you had Rhonda form it.
Yes, but one thing I see crossed out, we did
Yeah.
not, we did,
Let me explain.
okay,
That's my work.
okay,
In not only my mind from a legal standpoint, but also in discussing this with HR, we see huge problems to have more than one department head or
Okay.
different departments in charge of one employee.
okay.
Big problem.
What should I do first?
Right, who's more important?
Right.
Now, if it's a financial thing, financially, we can split it between whatever departments you want to.
We already do
We
that in a lot of it.
So if you're
Okay.
just doing that so that you could get the jail to pay for part of it, whatever, we can do that, that's fine on our end.
Yeah, but Jim told me to do this.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do it first, and
And
then I'll do what you
Hearing
want.
that, that's fine. That's just a collective, those two working together regardless, and we can do that in-house, so whatever it says
Sure.
on this is
That's
fine.
because of who they are. That's-
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
You know how that looks in the future.
Yep,
Something changes and all of a sudden it doesn't work so good. No, it's just, from a legal theoretical problem, it's problematic.
Perfect.
So I redrafted those portions only on the basis of the fact that the entire discussion started out, this person is going to be basically the person you meet when you walk in the front door of the police department.
Correct.
So that's what we drafted it to be. Administrative assistant for the police department. The chief of police can certainly authorize, and under this would be able to authorize that person to do some spot work here and there, whether it's filing, clerical, or things like that, to assist out with the corrections. But it's still gonna be the PD's employee, and the main the supervisor is going to be the chief of police. Those were the basically things that I changed.
And this is a position we currently do not have, correct?
We used to. This is a position that we used to have,
Yeah.
and then we didn't have, and then it went away. So we actually got the old job description from the old one, and then kind of tweaked everything to what our current
This is the one that
practice
sat
is.
in the middle of the main room?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep,
I think, what, about 6 years since that position?
correct, yep.
No, it's been 10.
It's
been a lot longer.
It's been more
When I
than-
started
great
being
heavens.
when I started being a dispatcher, the position was there.
Yeah.
I was a dispatcher for 2 years, the position was not there.
So it was when, it was under Jeff Keeslick and Genevieve's
Okay.
reign.
Tenure.
Because we came in-
Tenure.
They came in and they did a budget analysis.
Yep.
Based
Yeah, it
off
was
of what
like 9
MRS
and
gave
10.
us, and
Sam?
they freaked out. And we released quite a few. I have a couple questions still, under necessary the knowledge, skills, and abilities. Item number 2 and 3, it's already mentioned down under background information. To me, that's repetitive and we just extra space that we don't necessarily need to do. No need to repeat it twice. And then number 3, this is something I have a question on. So this is something that's come up in multiple different areas. It's come up in public works, it's come up in code enforcement. We're telling people must currently possess our ability to obtain, and then we're not putting on there how long they have to obtain it, and so there's not really much we can do.
What?
Came up, item number 4 under necessary
You
knowledge,
said
skills,
3.
abilities. Sorry. Currently possesses our ability to obtain certification in CPR AED. This
So you
came
want to
up-
add within so many months?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you guys, because you've asked me before, well, shouldn't they have this certification already? I said, well, yes, it says they should, but you don't give them a time frame. So technically, if they never get it, there's not much we can do. So are we wanting to put timeframes on these items?
Wouldn't that be during the probationary period?
You've been doing a year on quite a few. We added a year to quite a few of your CDLs. So they had a year to do it because it is quite a lengthy test. On your water certification, they have a year to get it.
Do we currently, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me I recall that we don't have a time frame on that particular requirement in at least several of the jobs over in law enforcement center.
So that, yeah, Rhonda brought that up too, that we don't have a time frame on any of the law enforcement people for CPR AED.
Right.
And so is that something we want to add? Do we want to leave it alone? I mean, you can leave it alone, but you don't have a whole lot of teeth
But you
behind it
don't
if they
have
never
teeth.
get it.
Right.
Currently, our standard practice is yearly, you know, unless like a 2020 pandemic thing hits and nobody will come and do it. That has since been solved since we have our own instructor in-house. So that is our common practice now, is yearly, everybody. I think the CPR certification itself is good for 2 years.
It is.
And then we try to get our
But you
people
can
through.
get it within the first year.
Yeah,
So that would make sense.
That's the question, is what we're trying to determine is, when should you have obtained it?
Yeah, that's what I don't know. Or do you want to just leave it alone? And then
And-
is it even worth having it in there? if
Do
you
our
don't put it
city,
here?
And
do
in
our
the-
city,
What do you have to obtain?
CPR and AED certification.
within the police department, you get that certification at the academy, and that is state law that you have to go start the academy within 1 year of your hire. So that's why it's probably not in there, because that's already taken care
Same
of.
dispatch
PD.
then.
Yeah.
Yep,
So,
yep.
But you don't have that requirement for jail.
We do, because that is a big thing with our contracts, is that all our people are CPR AED certified. So that is why we do it as often as we do.
But there again, we don't have it as part of their job description.
Yeah, no, I don't
And it
believe it's
probably
ever
makes
been in
sense
there.
that we should, at least the next time around, that we're
Sure, and that,
doing these things. for-
yeah.
Within
not
a
problem.
year is sure lenient enough, I would think.
I would think.
Well, if it's a department policy to do CPR training, we're providing it anyways.
Right.
So
This
why
requires
would-
them to.
it really doesn't need to be a requirement if the department's already providing it.
Well, yes and no.
What if you don't go?
So it's not a requirement
Yeah.
for my position, like for my people, they, in the finance office, it's not a requirement for them to get it, but we do offer it. So ultimately, this is just saying if you don't go, now I can write you up for it if you don't go and get it. Like my office, I wouldn't write them up if they don't go and get it because it's not something that they need to have. They're not typically saving lives unless.
What if
Brad
you
comes
need
in.
it though? I want all those people in my
I know
office
you
to
do
have it.
because we almost had to save your life one day, but.
Yeah,
But the reality is, we do have policy in there too, that is in the job description, that says you have to go to trainings. And, you know, basically, if your department head says, hey, you're going to this training, and then you say, no, I'm not, well, there's also insubordination policies already in place. I mean, so you can regulate yourself to death.
What-
We do have a lot of policies that already handle a lot of this.
what damage do we do to our ability to hire people if we say, thou shalt have this within 1 year of hire?
And we supply it at no cost.
If we supply it, we don't have
Yeah.
a ton of damage.
It's
Huh?
an hour and a half class.
Yeah.
Since we're supplying it, there isn't damage to it, because we're gonna make sure that they get it no matter what. Now, if it was, there, in 2020 and previous years, it wasn't just 2020, it did happen in previous years too. We couldn't get people to come in and train us. So that's where it could have been potentially an issue, but ultimately, then the supervisor can answer that as, hey, we know you're trying to get this, but we don't have somebody to come in and train you. So you're gonna get a pass on this because we haven't been able to provide it for you. So there are opportunities. I don't think it hurts us by any means.
For this one, how about if I just change the wording slightly? Scratch the words ability to, and so it's just gonna say currently possess or obtain within 1 year of hiring certification CPR AD. That's it. Wraps it up.
And I don't know if you want, just so it don't scare anybody, it's no cost to them, we supply it, we pay for it.
Sure.
It's not like they have to outsource, go looking, well, where can I take a CPR class if I go to work here? It's
In-
house, it's an hour, 15 minutes, hour and a half class.
In my
That you're getting paid
experience,
to be at.
you guys, us, we look at job descriptions far deeper than the people applying for the jobs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, yeah, I don't think how you word this is really gonna scare anybody away or or anything else.
It's more a matter of the lawyer understanding that.
Yeah.
If you get down the road 3 years and somebody hasn't had this certificate, they've had opportunities, you at least want some ability to enforce it.
Yep.
The one thing that HR did remove, and I want this to be clear because we're not gonna ever allow it in a job description, is it very clearly said must be able to see, hear, and something else.
Speak.
Speak. That is a very clear definition of discrimination, so we cannot legally put that in any job description. So the job, it then changes to must be able to effectively communicate.
Do we have, does everybody that work for the city go through the CPR training? Yeah, that's
It's
all.
available to everyone, not everyone does.
So a couple years, I don't, Jan would be able to know more, but insurance has provided a lot of that for us over the years. If we take that, they provide the class, we take it, and then they give us, we get a break on our insurance, but
Yeah.
it's all the public.
Get less of an
All the public
increase.
works, people go through MSHA, and they all go through CPR and first aid.
I think it's good for every employee.
I think that's
If you're gonna spend
very
$4,000 on AEDs for all over the place, everybody should know how to use them.
Yeah, and for the record, the finance office employees do typically go once every 2 years. It's just not something I require of them. But it's something that's a benefit to them on the back end too, that they're driving down the road and something happens, you have that knowledge and experience as well.
Well, that's just a community thing. It's good for everyone in the community to know how to do this.
Than you are in that office over there.
Yeah, I know.
Wait, what?
They
I
might
didn't
not
catch
help
that.
me, yeah.
Say that again, Troy.
Yeah.
Fine, I'll go back and look on the camera.
Are we good to go with that?
Changing that to within 1 year,
Yes.
that one item, yep.
Within 1 year, yes. So it'll say, currently possess, comma, or obtain within 1 year of hiring, comma, certification in CPR/AED.
So same thing with your cemetery, you have a resolution you have to change with this as well. You have to set this position on your starting wage scale. It is not currently
But
there.
we currently haven't authorized an administrative assistant in the law enforcement center.
You've not appropriated for it.
Okay, then I don't know that this needs to be passed yet.
Question that
I don't
was
care, I mean, we can pass it, but we do,
You're not authorizing it by doing this. You're only authorizing it when you appropriate funds for it.
right.
But I believe that the police department was asked, can you find it within your budget this year to move forward?
That was,
And that's why it was asked to come to this committee, because if they could find it in their budget this year to make it happen,
2 council members.
On what?
if they could find it within their budget to hire this person this year, because they've been short-staffed, 2 people for however many months, blah, 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 if they could find it within their budget this year, then they could go ahead and hire, but they had to have a job description and a starting wage.
And that was said by the law enforcement committee, or whatever, jail committee?
Yes, law enforcement committee, yep. This
So
place
send,
that's in on
send that to law
No,
enforcement committee.
he
If
was-
that's their recommendation, is to get them hired. Let them approve this policy.
And the starting wage?
Or-
I didn't see a starting wage in
I
this.
I don't know what
Starting
that
wage
is.
We haven't
has to
heard
go to
that.
full council.
I think the job description does too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it
I
does.
mean, that's why if you guys approve that, then it can go on Monday night for all of council to talk about it. And then if you wanna send it back or do whatever, that's
But I'm not
fine.
sure
Rather than
this
send
is
it
isn't an
back.
ordinance committee decision here, I don't think.
We
is
can
it?
send it to full council, but I don't like
Personnel.
getting 2 different committees
Right.
involved. When-
So
when
it
one
was the
committee wants to
recommendation
hire-
of that committee to bring it here, so that it could potentially go on Monday night. If you guys are saying you don't
Don't
want that
rush it.
responsibility, then we can send it
I
back.
don't think this is an ordinance.
It's a policy.
Oh,
It is a policy, it's an administrative
this is the policy?
All of your job
Job
descriptions are
descriptions are
policies.
policy.
Okay.
We can send it back to corrections next
I'm
Wednesday.
fine sending it to Monday too. And I'm not saying I'm against hiring somebody, but when another committee says get it done, try to get it done yet this year, they should be involved in this policy.
Okay.
We don't have a starting wage.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a starting wage. We send this to committee next Wednesday. You have to bring a starting wage and break that down for that committee.
Police committee.
I
Back
think
to
the
the-
people working in this division need to be the ones that make the decision.
You can approve this and
Send it
send this back to them and say, hey, we approve this job description. You guys set the wage, you guys determine.
It's gonna be like, what, 2008?
Don't know what they'll set it at. If they wanna set it.
I don't
I
know.
mean, that's what our minimum in public works is 20 bucks. It's like just a little bit over $20 this year.
I
I-
mean, you would wanna look at public works versus what do you pay the office staff, because public works is outside in the, but I don't know, actually, I think they're at the same starting wage now that I think about it. Office staff starts the same as a lawnmower.
And I would kinda look to see what your starting wage is in your office for office staff. That's
What we're
kinda
hearing
where-
is this is going back to police department committee.
I think that's where it needs to go, not,
I'm fine with it.
I think you guys needed to approve this.
Yep.
Job description's approved, now let's send it back to them, they finish their work.
Perfect.
Okay. 9:00, actually 4 minutes after.
Yeah, and we have another meeting.
you have another meeting right
We
away?
have meetings all morning, fun stuff.
Yeah, we do.
Well, I have a question about, I think it was 1071 that we passed last Monday.
Okay.
What are we gonna do? Are we gonna charge a minimum fee then on lots that aren't qualified to build on? Anything less than 50 foot in a residential area, you cannot build on. So should they be subject to the minimum water, sewer, electric, garbage fee?
So that ordinance actually has nothing to do with that. This is just stating you can't squat on a property if you don't have utilities.
Well,
That's all
maybe
that
I
is.
have the wrong number, but I thought we passed an ordinance that said every lot shall pay a minimum
No.
fee.
You
Did we
passed-
not?
No, your ordinance that you passed was simply saying if
What'd we
they're,
do?
you have to have utilities.
18 months ago.
Yeah.
2 years
The
ago.
one that you
We
passed
tried to
on Monday
impose
was-
that for every lot that people own in the city, that if that.
What did we just vote on that I was the
That
only
was an
no vote?
ordinance that established a requirement to have both water and sewer utilities.
If you were living there.
In order to live there.
So if that property
To live on the premises or in the facility.
Because we have people squatting in homes that do not have.
Please explain squatting.
Squatting, it means that they're, well, I say squatting and I can't even tell you it's necessarily squatting. We have squatting, which means you're legally staying at a place that you don't own.
In a
Okay.
structure.
In a structure, but also we have people who own the structures but just don't pay their utilities because they're borrowing it from somebody else, which then creates a safety concern for our employees. So all we wanted was for this ordinance to give our code enforcement authority to say, you don't have active utilities, you cannot be staying here. You need to find someplace else to stay.
Right.
That is all that ordinance did.
Or get active
I sure didn't
utilities.
understand what I read.
And Brad, that was only first reading last.
I understand that,
It'll be back
I think
up.
it'll be a good discussion.
but that's why I had the question here.
I wondered why.
Yeah, and that's why I voted no, because I thought that was what you've been
Nope.
trying to pass for a long time.
No, we did not, we're not addressing that. This is, we've got some structures people are living in and they're running power cables to their neighbors and taking power
Vehicle.
Yeah.
or in a vehicle.
It came about because the people that are, they want us to hook their utilities up to trailers that we can't even hook our utilities up to them. We don't have anything.
This one's separate from that.
Trailers, like camping trailers, you mean?
Mobile homes,
Right.
even
Yeah, well, we have
manufactured
an
homes.
ordinance against that.
Yeah, so this one is separate from that one even.
Mhm.
This is simply saying that if you are staying in a structure, doesn't matter if it's stick-built, mobile home, anything, you have to be.
An empty garage.